Get ready for the next state of play because it looks like it's happening soon. This episode of PlayStation News is all about leaks because we've got stories about PlayStation Spartacus because that cannot stop leaking, and the next big PS Now game also leaked. But before we jump into the video, a friend of the channel was kind enough to give me a PC code for God of War to give away to a subscriber of the channel. So if you want a chance to win a free copy of God of War on PC, make sure you let me know down in the comments below what you're looking forward to most in God of War Ragnarok. Maybe it's a villain, maybe it's some combat updates, let me know what you think, and I'll pick my favorite one and reply to you down below. So let's jump into the video. So the evidence surrounding PlayStation 3 games being playable on the PS5 very soon keeps adding up and adding up. The first thing that really tipped people off that something was going on was that the gift cards you could buy at the store in the UK to get subscriptions to PS Now were like very suddenly pulled off shelves, and Sony gave a very weird response when they were asked about it. They said they were like recalibrating for the future going forward, and people just thought it was really fishy. Things got even weirder when a bunch of PS3 games, like a couple Prince of Persia games and a Dead or Alive game, showed up on the PS5 store and you could just go ahead and purchase them. You couldn't actually download them to your PS5, but it was weird to have games that you can't play on PS5 be available for purchase, and those disappeared miraculously very quick. And then after that, Mark Cerny and David Simpson over at Naughty Dog updated a patent that they filed a long time ago that's basically them patenting PS3 emulation. And then the weirdest thing of all, and the most recent thing of all, is that on the PS5 and the PS4, if you go into the trophy app, a bunch of PS3 game trophies started popping up and they weren't working right for a lot of people, and then trophies overall had to be disabled for at least a few minutes. So I don't really know how much more proof you need short of an announcement that Sony is obviously planning something related to the PS3 and the PS5, and a lot of people think it's going to be this Project Spartacus subscription that's going to be like PlayStation Now, PlayStation Plus, Crunchyroll, and Funimation all packed into one big subscription cost to kind of combat Game Pass. And instead of being like day one releases of the biggest PlayStation 5 games, maybe you'll get the PS Plus collection, and then you'll also get PS1, PS2, PS3, and even it's rumored that you'll get PSP games. There's so many P's and PS's, it's hard to keep track of here, with this subscription, and you'll be able to play all of it on your PS5, which honestly sounds awesome. This has been a long time coming, and I'm glad it's actually happening, because before this, Sony has never really said whether or not they're even working on getting this emulation down. I remember when Mark Cerny did that Power Hour YouTube talk last year, there was a weird space left in the image for PS3, and he was just super vague about it, but it's obvious why people want PS3 games to run on the PS5, because we've had a whole generation where so many great games were unplayable. We couldn't play Metal Gear Solid 4 for the entire PS4 generation, which is crazy because when you compare that to Metal Gear Solid 5 and a lot of the stuff that came after, like Metal Gear Survive, Metal Gear Solid 4 looks even better now than it did when it came out. I'm very excited to try that game out again. Of course, you also have the first two Infamous games, which are incredible. I absolutely love those games, and I think a lot of people kind of let them slip by without really trying them, except for when Infamous 1 was free after the big PS3 outage. I think a lot of people should go back and play that game, especially if you like the combat and what was going on in Infamous Second Son, but you weren't really into the story. I think you'll like Infamous and Infamous 2 a lot more because Cole is just a better character than Delsin Rowe overall. All three Resistance games are locked down to the PS3, which is crazy. Resistance 1 Fall of Man is kind of rough. I don't think that game's very playable in 2022. Resistance 2 had a pretty good campaign, but Resistance 3 is like an incredible standalone adventure. You play as an all-new character, and it's kind of like a great ending to the series as a whole. I really liked Resistance 3, and I'd love to go back and play it because I feel like it'd be even better now than it was when it came out. And honestly, it is possibly the coolest first-party box art of all time from Sony. I love the box art for Resistance 3. Portal 2, Red Dead Redemption, the original Dead Space, all of those are locked to the PS3, which is crazy because you can play all of those games on the Xbox 360. The HD collection of Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker is also locked down to the PS3. The original Metal Gear Solid, you can't even play that on the PS5 right now, which is nuts. And how am I forgetting Killzone 2 and 3? Killzone 3, people I don't feel like played, but it was an awesome campaign. That is one of the best first-person shooters I've ever played, and that is not playable on the PS4 or PS5. Shadowfall is decent. If you played Shadowfall and you didn't really like it, I highly recommend checking out Killzone 2 and 3 if and when those become playable on the PS5. And then speaking of Dead Space 2 is one of the best action horror horror games ever made. I absolutely loved it. And if you think the thing they do in God of War is cool, where there's a cameraman behind Kratos for the entire game and the whole game is technically one take, Dead Space 2 did it way back in 2011 and they did a really good job with it. And there's even more weird outliers like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas that somehow are not playable on PS4 or PS5. So yeah, I really want this PS3 emulation to happen. Again, I say it a lot, but the one thing they really need to do is make sure they have a way to track what games you bought digitally on the PS3 with your PlayStation account and make those available to download on your PS5 without having to subscribe to Spartacus. I don't want to have to pay for PlayStation Now, PlayStation Plus, all these different things. I'd rather just keep my PS Plus subscription and also just be able to play the games I already bought. I really honestly have no use for PS Now. I don't like streaming. I don't think it works very well. I don't think it looks very good. I'd rather just play the games on my console, and it's going to be really frustrating if Sony makes me subscribe to a service to play games I already bought, because I have a ton of these games digitally from that generation. PS3 was my main console. I hope Sony is kind of reading the tea leaves here and realizing how big of a PR disaster that would be, and they really can't afford to have that right now with Microsoft buying up Activision right from under them when Call of Duty is literally the biggest game on the PlayStation 5. So hopefully Sony's paying attention to that. Hopefully they don't make the Sony move that we're all kind of expecting them to make, and you can just download the games you already bought. My fingers are crossed. It kind of just seems like a no-brainer on their part. But yeah, I feel like we're not going to have to wait that much longer for this Project Spartacus to be announced. Like, they're doing stuff on the back end of the PlayStation Store. They're obviously updating the trophy app. They're obviously updating the store to have PlayStation 3 games on there individually, which is a good sign for this whole subscription thing. Like, if you're able to buy PS3 games individually on the store, I really hope Sony has it figured out so they can see what you've already bought. And it would be awesome if that extended to PS1 games as well. I have the original Metal Gear Solid from when I bought the collection. I also have Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I have Resident Evil 2 and 3. I have so many PS1 games already purchased digitally. I have a few PS2 games purchased digitally from the PS4 re-releases. If I can just re-download those day one like I could on the Vita when they added PSP games and PS1 support, that would be sick. I would be so excited if that happened. There are just so many great games from that generation that aren't playable on PlayStation consoles, and it's kind of crazy. Like, the fact that right now you can play more Metal Gear Solid games on an Xbox Series X than a PlayStation 5. It's just nuts. Metal Gear Solid, in my mind, is absolutely tied to PlayStation. You can put as many of those games as you want on the Xbox. I'm always going to be wanting to play them with at least some controller with dual in the title, whether it's a DualSense, a DualShock, or a DualShock 4. I want to play those games on PlayStation. So yeah, thankfully it looks like this is coming sooner rather than later, and I'd love to hear what PS3 games that you can't play right now that you're excited to play when they become available down in the comments below. The next story I have for you guys is that reviews are out for the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, and the reviews are extremely good. Apparently this small update that they added to the graphics and the frame rate just really brings the game home on PS5, and it feels like it should have released on PS5 to begin with. Now, that's awesome because the Uncharted games are kind of like a relic at this point. We have open world stuff in The Last of Us Part 2, we have open world stuff in even Uncharted The Lost Legacy, but Uncharted 4 is a pretty linear adventure from start to finish. It's a third-person action game that has no upgrades, no RPG systems. It's just a linear action game with a ton of different levels and a ton of insane production value, and I really like those type of games. That's what I liked playing back on the PS3. It's what I liked playing on the PS4. So I'm really excited to revisit Uncharted. That's one of my favorite series of all time. I really wish they would go back and update the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection just a little bit more to make it look and play just a little bit better on the PS5, because the shooting is kind of rough in that collection even with the updates they already made, and the graphics, they could be smoothed out just a little bit more. And just seeing how well Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy are running on the PS5, it makes me want a full-on remake of even maybe the first 3 games. Like, can you imagine how big of a deal it would be if they remade Uncharted 2? I know that game is like 10 years old at this point, so it's kind of new-ish, but Uncharted 2, if they completely remade it from the ground up in this engine that's running Uncharted 4, it would be incredible, and I think it would sell gangbusters, because if you look at this series as a whole, people love Uncharted 2. They always rank it at the top. I personally like Uncharted 3 more, but hey, if you want to remake one of the games, if you want to make a ton of money, Uncharted 2 is probably the way to go. Now, the upgrade system for the Legacy of Thieves collection was kind of messed up because Sony took the games off the PlayStation Store because there was a really cheap way to get them, but if you manage to purchase the PS4 editions of those games in any capacity, it's a very cheap upgrade to get the PS5 edition, and I feel like it's definitely worth it. We've got a huge month of games coming up in February between Dying Light 2, Horizon Forbidden West, Elden Ring is right around the corner, so there's some new stuff to play, but if you've never played Uncharted 4, I highly recommend checking it out because by all accounts, they did a great job with these ports. The next news story I have for you guys is that we now know the next big game coming to PlayStation Now in February, and it's Grand Theft Auto Vice City. It's the updated edition from that new collection that was kind of a mess when it came out, but apparently they patched it and it looks and runs a whole lot better. And when it came out, the one that people said ran the best was actually Vice City. Like, that one had the least problems, was the most fun to play. I actually didn't buy this collection because the reviews were so mixed on it. There was just so much to play at the time this came out that I really didn't feel like playing an upscaled mobile port of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, but now that I know it's on PlayStation Now, I might subscribe for a month just to download it to my PS5, run through it, and then never think about it again, because I really like the 80s, I like the soundtrack, I like that Vice City is technically Miami, I love that they got Ray Liotta to play the main character in that game, and if it's included with a subscription, I think it's going to be worth checking out, because buying the whole collection, I know I could just do that, I just don't think I'm going to play Grand Theft Auto 3 or San Andreas, especially if they're as messy as they were at launch. Man, I just got to point out though that this month is pretty bad for both PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus. I talked about the PlayStation Plus games in the last video and I called them mid or mid to good. I think it's actually a pretty bad month for PlayStation Plus. I don't know, last month was so perfect that I feel like they get the benefit of the doubt here, and of course they're going to have some off months once in a while, but it felt like they were on a negative streak for a little while and then they recovered, and I was really hoping February would be great, and then I don't know, I'm just disappointed with the offerings this month, so hopefully March is a lot better than February was. So speaking of big PlayStation leaks, there's been a rumored state of play coming for a very long time now, and it looks like February 1st is the date which it's going to be announced, and then February 3rd is the day it's going to happen. Now, there's no word on whether or not this is going to be a state of play or a showcase. Sony kind of separates those out, and showcases are where they announce new games, really get people hyped up for stuff that's coming in the future, and state of plays are where they usually focus on one game, like God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Forbidden West. Obviously, I want it to be a showcase. I want to see some stuff that's coming in the back half of the year. Obviously, we have Horizon Forbidden West to look forward to. We've got Gran Turismo 7 to look forward to. We've got God of War Ragnarok, but there's some other stuff I think we would like to see more gameplay of that Sony's kind of hiding under their sleeve. And if it is happening on February 3rd, there's actually a lot of stuff we could see there that I think is realistic. The first thing being the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So we know that's real. EA just confirmed it alongside 2 more Star Wars games, one of those being a real-time strategy game and the other one being an FPS from Respawn. All of that sounds great, but the rumors are that Jedi Fallen Order 2, or the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, because it's probably not going to be called that, is coming at the end of this year. So if Sony has the first teaser at their next showcase or state of play, and then we get the full gameplay reveal in May at Star Wars Celebration, that would be awesome. If Sony can lock down some sort of exclusivity, like maybe a DLC pack, a special lightsaber color, or something like that for this game, that would be absolutely awesome. And having that announced at their event to kind of counter this whole Activision news from Microsoft, that would really put Sony back in the news in a good way. Another game that I absolutely think we're going to see is Hogwarts Legacy. That one's been quiet for a long time now. I know on Sacred Symbols they talked about how it might be coming out in 2023 and the game's in trouble, but we also got an update from Warner Brothers after that that said no, it is on track for 2022. I think Warner Brothers understands that they have to get that game right. We did of course get the reveal for it at one of these PlayStation showcases, so getting the big re-reveal with actual gameplay that shows off what the game is really going to be, that would be awesome to have at a Sony event, and I don't see how or why that would actually happen at a Microsoft event. So yeah, the timing lines up really well, especially if that game's coming out by the end of the year. It's just like the perfect place, the perfect time to re-announce that game. Another thing that would be awesome to see is some updates on Konami stuff, because we know something's going on with Silent Hill. Bloober Team is making a Silent Hill game that I'm honestly kind of excited for. I think Bloober Team is a severely underrated studio, and I think they're going to do a good job with Silent Hill. There's also rumors that Kojima is actually kicking back up with Silent Hills, like he's doing a Silent Hill game that's going to be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. And then of course Konami also has Castlevania. I'd love to see something from that. We know how popular the show was on Netflix, so I feel like not having a game in the works would be a huge mistake on Konami's part. And then finally, they're apparently working on a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 that's going to be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. I would love to see that. That was supposed to be announced apparently last E3, and then Konami pulled out at the last second, so they're obviously kind of ready to show this stuff off, and PlayStation is definitely going to be the place to play all of this stuff. So yeah, I'd like to see some updates from Konami. Anyway guys, that's all the PlayStation news I have for you today. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.